Hello everyone, and welcome back to this amazing episode where we'll be having a very special guest with us, Mr. Lakshit. So, let me tell you something about Lakshit. He's OG in community space. Lakshit Pant is an accomplished community leader and program manager, currently doing freelancing as a and previously working as a community program manager at Microsoft, where he oversees the prestigious MBB and MLSA program with a great deal of experience in building communities, scaling programs, leading a lot of events across multiple cities of India. He have a lot of experience in this space, and we would love to know more about you, Lakshit.
Perfect. Thank you, Manik, for organizing this and pulling this off. It's wonderful to be here. And thanks everyone for listening. Whoever is listening out there, thank you for your time. Appreciate it always. I've been into this industry for more than four years. It's been a fantastic journey building communities, scaling communities, learning together, creating together. Right. So it's been always fun. Yeah. So it's more about I've been always trying to do this out of my personal interest. Fortunately, I've been very fortunate. It's been really good fortunate to get the job in the similar space and then getting actually paid for what I actually love to do, right? So it's kind of luck that I believe. But yeah, always appreciate the people who have helped me to reach here.
Wonderful. We have a question like how you get interested in this exciting space, how you started your journey, and you when you realize that okay, this is the space in which I'll be having my career in future.
So to be very honest, it was more out of personal interest. I was not that time when I started. I didn't knew that this kind of a space or community manager kind of a full time role even exists in the industry. Right, this is a pre-COVID time. I just thought of doing at that time that community is all about the community the way you see today and the community that was like in 2019 2020 sort of, right, was way different. There was hardly anything, right? There was hardly any these full-time opportunities or something similar to that, especially for fresher roles. There were a couple of opportunities for DevRels which you see, or advocates and whatnot, which comes after 4 or 5 years of experience as a software engineer, as a developer in the industry, right? But my inception in this industry was just started from thinking of more as a bringing more societies to my college, upskilling myself at the same time, because due to COVID there was a lot of issues. There was I came from a tier 3 college, so it was like let me see how can I provide more opportunity to myself as well as to my college student. How can I get more visibility in the industry? So that has been obviously the thought. And then I just kept doing it. I just never stopped my way, and these opportunities keep coming. I just never stopped since then, right? So it was more about our personal interest. Whatever I used to learn, I used to share it across the socials. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's why you can be considered as a true community person,
Right.
helping others along the way and exploring our own potential. Wonderful. So, Lakshit, you have worked both at startup, that is Freescale, and enterprises like in the past Microsoft. So, how has your approach to community building shifted between these two environments?
So it's I see hardly there is a hardly any difference, just that the kind of work. So for internally, of course there is a big difference, because the way you work in a startup versus the way you work in a corporate, it's a very different thing. In a startup, you are responsible actually for a lot of, you are wearing multiple hats, responsible for a lot of things. Even you are responsible for sometimes, often sometimes, even that doesn't comes under a place, you are looking after that, right? So there is nothing defined in a particular startup, right? But on the same side, you get a particular KRA, you have specific lines of work, you have a scope of work which you where you phrase all your discussions, all your work or your working hours around, right? So maybe the only difference that I see in the startup and the maybe from Microsoft, or maybe from any enterprise per se, is more of a the formal process, or the ability to push anything quick, right? So when you are working at a startup, you can immediately, if you can plan it today and can just go and publish it, or make it, just speak about it day after, or maybe maybe in just 1 2 3 days, right, wherever. Whereas in the startup, the enterprise ecosystem, it takes a lot of approvals and a lot of things, right? Though mine was a little exception, because I was the one managing the entire MVP and MLSA program here in India. And I've fortunately, and my manager was incredible, right? So he gave me a little, some extensive flexibility to work as I want to drive the Indian community ecosystem, right? So that has been always a plus. But I always believe like it's just your internal thought. There is hardly any difference. You can, because communities is same, right? People are same. That the knowledge that you're sharing is again the same, right? So it hardly makes any difference. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. That being said, managers to play an important role, everyone, and we hope that you'll get a good manager too in your coming career. Wonderful, Lakshit. So, another question that we would like to discuss is scaling a community from 30 cities to 150 cities approximately, like you did with Azure Developer Community. It's no small feat. So, what are the key factors that helped you scale so fast without losing authenticity? Because if we focus majorly on expansion, so we lose genuinity and authenticity, then that we focus more on marketing and all.
Because there was, again, I'll be, I'll be very transparent there, because again, that there was a Microsoft brand attached to it, so always there is a pull model, right? We do not have to push anything to the community. We do not have to, speak about, interest, seek interest, sort of. There is always an interest that was in the industry, right? I just thought of, because there were a lot of channels, there was lots of independent ambassadors, lots of independent advocates who are already doing really good work in their own cities, right? Just that their work has never been acknowledged. So all what I did in that role is to just acknowledge the respective work, respective, the relevant person is doing. Let's, irrespective of the city they are in, right? So let's suppose they are in tier 3 city or tier 1 city, doesn't really matter, right? It's more about how they are doing, what they are doing, why they are doing, right? So it's more about, I just done the mapping of right person who already had, because you cannot force someone to actually do this. And most often, when you seek interest about this community and all this stuff, right, the profiles or the application that comes over, these comes most of the time are into foremost, right? So you have to look after the true advocate versus the advocates who have been doing it because some other person, they, or maybe they have heard about it. There is nothing wrong in it if you might be hearing and you wanted to do, because that's how the ecosystem works. But I'll say, I'll always look after people who have been, I'll always give a chance to people who has been doing it, giving a little bit of space, a 10-20% space to people who want to give it, on their first try as well, right? Because I've seen a lot of people actually, being extremely successful, starting their community for the very first time, right? So I wouldn't say I'm disregarding them in any cases, but yeah, for someone who is, for whom the community is not a kind of fame making journey or kind of a money making journey, I just tapped those people and it worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Wonderful. And for me, that some of the people who got very successful,
Right.
you come in those list.
Right. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. What is the most underrated element of community scaling that leaders often overlook because they are some of the most essential aspect in communities?
Right. So at the when you are building communities, right, you have to think of how this is actually helping the customer, the person who is the organization who is sponsoring that respective community, right? So a lot of times, the people where they fail to understand is, what's the main reason behind for any organization to run the community, right? It's not a marketing spend. Community is 100% not a marketing spend. A lot of people still believe that they are just burning down their money in the community ecosystem or with the campus ambassador program that they are running, right? But it's not actually like this. You have to think of, it's just that thought of, that you don't have enough understanding of product and how you are channelizing your community program. So I always believe that community can bring you a lot of business, can bring you a, not if not business, then it can actually bring a lot of other perks which are really essential for you to stay relevant in the industry. Let it be the feedback for the respective product that you have in the market, right? So that becomes really important. Or the, advocates that you, the no cost advocates that you bring to the industry. There are lots of aspects to it. So I'll say a lot of people misses out on, creating this funnel where community, while scaling, right, they just focus on getting these events in place, getting number of attendees out of their systems, right? But that's not the right metrics for any organization. That can be right metrics for the organizer, for who is looking after that event and who is responsible for driving that. But you as an organization have to think of how that spend that you are doing is relevant for you. Let's suppose hackathon, right? Hackathon doesn't really work anymore, right? You have to divide it into multiple chunks. If you just spend like 5-10 lakhs out there on a single hackathon, it's not going to work. You have to think of how you, because 90-95% of the ideas that comes today, right, these are more GPT oriented. People are just landing their brain to GPT, right? So you have to think of how you get the best out of the people, right? So you create those cohorts, you create ideathons, seek out the interest, you see what kind of relevant ideas coming from, then you speak to only relevant folks. Then the other folks were left out, you speak to them in a different, you communicate with them in a different way, maybe organize learning cohorts and so this kind of different approaches which one should follow. But again, it's all come down to the, how actually you are focusing on, that community side and creating that to, or connecting that to that business funnel of yours. Yep.
Wonderful, quite complex. And I wanted to ask, particularly you. how you measure the metrics of a community to consider it as a very successful community, and how you measure the health of a community beyond numbers like sign-ups, event counts, etc.
I've not been a big fond of numbers. Do I respect numbers always. It's a good thing to look after for the stakeholders, right? It's a fancy thing, but if you really wanted to build or scale any community program, you have to think of impact model, right? So it's more about, let's suppose there is a 999 rule here in the industry, this community industry, right? A triple nine rule, which I say, like 900 people will actually see what you are, what the new product that you have launched. 90 people actually will open that link, and 9 people will actually become the advocate of your product, right? So that's kind of a rule that works in the industry most often. So you have to think of how you are, how your communication is going. Are you, so it should not be on scale, right? So if you are trying to capture all those 999 folks who got to know, or who with whom you or in whose inbox your email or make your marketing, your LinkedIn post landed, then they might not be a relevant audience, right? Or even those 90 folks who might have opened your the link which you have been sharing, like the product link in discussion, even they are not the right audience, right? So you have to think of the impact model is these 9 people who are actually started or utilizing your product in a general way, right? Maybe in any respective way that they wanted to utilize it. Because if you focus on then these 9 people, right, and this applies to every single community. If you're a student community organizer, if you want to scale a community, I'll say do not go after big numbers, right? Just do one thing. It's a kind of a golden rule that I always followed in any community. Even today, I'm just building a community from scratch, Azure Developer Hub. The thought is very simple. I'll work with, let it be like 5 or 10 people. I'll work very closely with 5 or 10 people. I'll take these 5 or 10 people to the top. I'll make sure that they get everything. I'll make sure that they are doing everything in the best way possible. They are just getting benefited in the best way possible through the community. Then once these people reach to a certain level, once they feel like okay, they are very good in the respective stuff that they really wanted to do, then they becomes your advocate, right? Their devil's side, your devil's side. Then they that marketing, you are not now you're not the only one who is speaking about, let's suppose, X product. Now you have 9 people extra who is speaking about your X product, right? So you have to focus on these 9 people and nurture them, right? So this is really important for for every industry, I would say.
Oh, I love the golden formula of yours and this triple nine rule. To be honest, I am in like community space from past 2 years. I and still I haven't got to know about it. And thanks to you today that you shared your golden rule with all of us. That being said, you've managed programs like MVPs, MLSAs, and a lot out there. So how do you design a program that goes beyond like that is normal, right? Suppose if you have to design a program, or suppose if someone asks you that how shall I design a program that is more than just activities and numbers. So what guidance you'll give?
Again, it comes from the same thing which I mentioned earlier. What's your requirement? Why you even want to do community, right? If you are an organization and if you want to start a community, right? What's your goal behind this community? Are you thinking just as again one of the marketing expenditure, or you are thinking of building a community and maybe looking after making revenue out of it, maybe 3 4 years down the line, and investing like that much amount of time into it, right? So what's your exact goal out of this community? This needs to be figured out as on the very early stage. Once you figure this out, you have to think of what's the current trend and how industry is behaving, right? So I'll tell you, there is a like earlier, like in 2021, 2020, even 2022, 2020 till 2022, or maybe 2023, I guess, right? I'll say the campus ambassador model worked a lot, right? A lot of organization did pull off really well with the campus ambassador model. They used to, these leaders did a brilliant job right now. But if any organization comes to me and asks me about how should I go into colleges, and I'll say do not go from bottom to top level, right? Because that's the worst way to go into, especially in 2025, because that doesn't really work anymore, right? Because out of a lot of factors, saturation, you can say, a lot of different competitiveness, lots of similar programs, what you can say, right? That that creates a lot of discrepancy. So I'll say, maybe if I have to design a campus ambassador program for anyone, I always prefer setting up or going after a digital excellence center labs, right? If you do not have to enough money to spend on creating a digital excellence, or maybe creating excellence center for any college, maybe speak to the faculty, going from top to down level, speak to the faculties or HODs or the authorities who sits at the higher level, and you build that kind of excellence center in their college. If not hardware, then maybe a software, maybe a digital excellence center that I mentioned, right? You organize maybe a cohorts for these people, for the student. Now you do not speak directly to the student, you speak to the colleges. They, whatever value they find, whatever they feel like, where is the gap. So if there is XYZ things involved in the syllabus, you see, okay, ABC can also be included through the community programs, through the excellence center, right? So you work, or then maybe if you are maybe working, let's suppose, let's take in with an example, right? So let's suppose you are a retail organization, you want to set up a community in space in India ecosystem, right? So what you do is, I'll say, maybe speak to the HOD and say, we want to set up a retail AI academy in your college. And then maybe these students will work upon one project, or maybe one or two projects in next one quarter, with support of these the college faculty that they are in. They write their research papers, they do their research, they build these projects with the help of faculties. At the same time, someone from the respective organization, retail organization, comes to these colleges. They speak about the product, they see how that is relevant. You organize mini ideathons, you do the brainstorming. So that kind of culture you can bring to the table, right? So that top to down model works really well. So maybe I'll say, figuring out the right thing for you as a business, what's relevant for you. If not, if you are you really, do you really want to cater the student audience? A lot of question organization fail to answer this question, because they feel like they are investing in the future, but actually if you see students right now, especially in college, they are just looking after these organizations just as another step to crush over and go to the next step, right? So are they really looking forward to build you, or take you as an advocate, or okay, understanding themselves as an advocate of your product, right? So you have to think about that aspect. And this is how typically I'll say maybe one should derive their industry initiatives, especially on the community.
Wonderful. I can personally relate to that because nowadays, as there are a lot of campus ambassador programs, so students thought it as a stepping stone that if they get into Google campus ambassador program, or Notion leader, Notion also runs their program like Microsoft. So there are high chances of them getting internships. So this is the mindset of students that are nowadays, and they don't. They even don't know much about the product. Rather, they apply to the programs just because of the name, the tag that they wanted to achieve. So yes, I really love the top-down approach that you have shared with us. Amazing. For the first time, I have heard something like that from anyone. So, uh, while running large-scale programs, as you have experience in managing large-scale programs, right? So, how do you balance structure? Like, what are the processes? What are the rules and flexibility, so that the community feels, recognized and flexible, not harsh.
uh, Come again, I just missed your last statement, what you said.
So, while running large-scale programs, how do you balance structure and flexibility?
So I feel like, when you are running a large scale program, right? It's not that you are not you do not consider yourself as a the what's the right word, maybe the owner, right? As soon as you think yourself as a owner of a community, you have messed it up, right? I'll say, right? Community is not, one cannot be an owner, right? One can be organizer, one can be a contributor, or whatever you call it, right? There are different names to it. But, or maybe a member, or maybe a speaker, expert, mentor, advisory board, whatever you feel like. But you cannot say that you have founded this community. Founded is again a very bad word to choose in the community, right? You might have done the initiation to bring 10 peoples in, right? But that doesn't mean that you own that, I'll say, right? You do not own people in the community. That has to, that should be very clear, right? And especially with a large scale program, when you say, if you give people, if you give respect to people, of and you give absolutely these two things that I always say: give respect and give space for people to experiment, right? If you give people enough experiment, enough space to experiment, they always gloom, right? Because let's suppose let it be about Microsoft MEP program, right? If I'll try to push only Microsoft products into the Microsoft MEPs, they will feel like they are just kind of in a way, they are the employees of Microsoft or what. They will feel like, we are not getting paid for this, why we should even do this and whatnot, right? But if it is a design in a way where they are free to expand, experiment it as soon as they want, because it's their community, they are the one who have been pushing all these efforts and whatnot, right? So I have to give enough space for people to experiment, as well as maybe give the respect, right? You are not, even if you are managing, or maybe you might be at a working at a C-suite level, or might have founded the company which runs the entire community program, but you cannot be the owner. You can, yeah, I am the only one who is making the decisions here. So one should be very respectful in the community. That's the golden rule for any big large scale program. Yeah.
Wonderful. Give spaces, give them the place to experiment. And wonderful. These are the points. These are the golden points that if anyone is able to execute in their community would obviously be thriving and successful.
Right.
So, as there are a lot of companies, right? Their goals is to drive more sales, maybe, or more feedbacks about their product. That's why they have built communities. Different corporations or organizations have different requirements from a community. So, how do we align corporate goals with community goals? So both sides win-win. Hmm.
So maybe if you know one thing I'll always say, get a professional, right, who have done this earlier, right? If you are hiring, if you're thinking, maybe if you are experimenting with the community and you think like you will bring some college student in and that's kind of he will build the right community program for you, that's not the case. I'll always say maybe spend a little bit more and try to bring some professional who have done the similar stuff in the past. It's not that I'm not denying that the fact that the student can do wonders, but it's just that when it comes to figuring out the right KRA for both the parties, right, it has to be very relevant. One should have a kind of marketing knowledge, one should have a kind of sales knowledge, product knowledge, right? See, community managers are not just speaking to people, right? They are advocating the respect, they are making sure that the product word of mouth reaches to the right people, right? So today if I want to pitch us, so today if I'm in the town and if I'm pitching a customer, right, or if I'm trying to find a client, what I can say is, okay, this is what the meeting went really well, and we do a lot of community stuff as well. If you want to try it out, what are the create capabilities and what are the good work that we do, why don't you join us in our community event, right? Or maybe a lot of times I used to pull off my client or customer meetings in the community event that we used to do, right? So they also get a sense of, okay, what the product is about, how people are using the community's product, right? So it looks like now I am as an employee marketing that product versus someone who is not getting paid for that work still advocating that product. There's a big difference of it, right? So maybe I'll say, but one cannot think, a student, someone from very fresh into the industry. I felt like this, maybe lacks oftentimes to do this mapping of the relevant decision making for maybe the programs. If you maybe as a CIO, CXO, or maybe at a shoot level, you are good enough to create those metrics for your organization, I feel you can always invest into the early careers or maybe the young brains. But maybe getting a person who can actually do the right stuff for you, maybe, or maybe if not for the long term, maybe get a consultant who can bring that plan for you and then drive it through any maybe college professor if you really wanted to save up maybe a couple of pennies on there. Yeah.
Wonderful. So the answer would be getting the professional and the team, and he'll ensure that both the sides will win. So, but any advice that you would like to give to any starter who has joined any company, maybe as a community manager, and the company is asking, okay, this is the community, this is our product, now drive more sales through the community. So, what advice would you like to give? Even though the community members should not feel like they are the puppets and they are marketed the product.
My community and sales is not the right word, I'll say, right? Maybe because, see, sales, there is, you cannot, as a community manager, you cannot be a salesperson, right? So I'll tell you how that number works. So imagine you're organizing an event of 1,000 folks, right? Maybe you are organizing an online event. I mean, let's suppose you're organizing an offline event. 1,000 people register for your event, 40 people do the second RSVP, right? Then sorry, 400 people do the second RSVP, 100 people shows up to your event, right? Now you roll out a feedback form, 10 people fills it. My question is, the people, do the communities or do these organizations really speak to the people, maybe, or do they have any communication funnel or separate communication funnel for people who have just registered for those 1,000 folks, right? So if I have to 1,000 minus 400, that is 600 folks. Do you have a separate communication channel for those 600 folks? Plus, do you actually have a separate communication channel for the rest 300 folks who did the second RSVP but didn't show up? Plus, do you have a separate channel of communication for people who actually showed up to your event? So these are three different communication channels which one needs to create, right? If you're not doing that, you cannot expect sales, right? In any case, right, you cannot expect good numbers or the impactful thing which can a community can bring you. So you have to be very, while you are bringing the diversified thing, you are pulling off these events, people are, you are getting a house full in your events. You cannot overlook those 1,000 folks who did register for the very first time, right? They take that their 5 minutes, they did register, right? So you have to figure out, think in a way, how do we communicate those people and how we convert these 1,000 folks next time into the 300 funnel, and these 300 foot, how can these people can be converted into 100 folks, and the 100 folks who actually attended, can we convert them to our, maybe our customers, not customers, maybe advocates and whatnot, right? And the people who actually feel the feedback from and whatnot, how they're using the product, what, what problem they are facing, where they are stuck, are they getting any credit issues for any organization. So let's suppose any startup is, launching a SaaS product today, right? So are they facing any credit issues, are there a credit limit that these people are facing, can this person's profile is really good if we invest in his profile, right? So you have to think in a larger way, so maybe, and then drive your communicate, all the respective communication, and think of, and you cannot directly as a community manager, if you're thinking, so this is for the organization, right? But for a individual, I'll say, you as a community manager cannot do the sales, and you don't try to do it the way the best way to do it. You drive your community events, you take the data and you create those relevant reports. The one report which I actually mentioned, right, to create relevant reports, you see these kind of personas that we are getting in the respective events, and these kind of, maybe the the from this part of India, from this part of globe, we are getting more interest. So you bring that data to life. So most of the community managers, what I see often, right, they do not work around with that data. They just try to pull off the events, online events or engagements, but they do not report it well. So if you do not report it well, it will never reach to the leads organization, that is your product organization. Now product organization will see, okay, what's been happening, where is the product, they will tweak here and there, they will plan the next 6 months, 8 months around the respective things, right? Then once the product team gives the go ahead and does the relevant thing for the product, then the sales team comes into the picture, and then they start communicating with the relevant 10 or maybe 15 folks who have actually came across, right? So this is how the funnel should be, I'll say, right? As a community manager, it's not a job to actually go for a sales call, right? It's the job of the people who are working on pre-sale sort of, right? So it's not your job, but your job is to get that feedback from the community, what's happening around, what kind of conversation happening around, mapping the right report to the right relevant stakeholder inside your team, and then pass it over. Then the rest thing happens, by the above the rest of the team.
Wonderful. Now, this shows that you have all the experiences. That's why you know all this stuff. But suppose if someone is getting started, so any resources that you would like to share to that person, so that that person can know, okay, these are the processes that I should be following as a community manager. What are the tools? What are the best practices? Because a lot of community managers think that it is about the sales and how they can learn more about the community.
I i don't really speak about it. I mean, I don't think like there is any specific resource which anyone has been creating, but maybe, look after case studies, right? Brilliant, like product marketing strategies, how did the product. And one thing that I've really, I feel like most of the good community stuff happens outside the technical ecosystem. The real community is happening outside the tech ecosystem, not in the tech ecosystem, right? Even in tech ecosystem, the community is the biggest brag that one has been doing. Even I brag it a lot, but I see the really good, value driven community where actually outside you see a community of traders, right? How well connected they are, how extremely engaging they are every day, right? Every day they are speaking to something, sharing news, saying the relevant information. Then you also see about, maybe a community of, maybe a people like, maybe who has been runners community, right? Or maybe back a badminton community, right? So you take inferences from these people, what's happening there. There's a human connection, and how that human connection is established, you look after that, right? And also making sure it's not only the benefit of the organization, look after how it is benefiting the respective members as an individual also, right? So there are a lot of aspects to it, I'll say, right? But maybe if one has to ask for resources, I'll say look around communities which are not running in tech ecosystem, like, so that's you will find, your answers there, maybe I'll say.
Beautiful analogies that you have pointed out. I never thought about that. We should look outside of the tech because I myself in tech and I thought with the perspective of technical mind. So
Right.
very beautifully put it. Of course, I'll be searching and we advise all the people who's watching. Just look outside. What do you think? Other perspective would really help you. That being said, some of the last few questions that we'll be covering. One of the most important question is, what role do you think AI will play in community building and program management? Because this era is all about AI, artificial intelligence. A lot of people are using AI to generate their marketing community strategy and how they should structure the programs and all.
I'll say a lot of community, and this can be a lot of this can bring a lot of controversies. But I personally feel like a lot of community managers that I see there today in the industry are gonna be replaced very soon, right? Not with AI, but people who have been working out really well with data, who have been working out really well with presenting that data to the relevant stakeholders and making the right decision at the right time. AI is, in community, AI cannot play a big role, but automation does play a big role, right? So imagine if I register today at your maybe 2 years, maybe two for this event, right? Are you communicating with me, and what are the modes that you are communicating? Are you communicating me through via email or via WhatsApp or via personal message, or are you calling me? How you're actually, what's your mode of communication through me, right? So are you for, if you want to organize a maybe a event for working professionals, right? What is your mode of communication for them? Are you using Discord channels, Telegram channels, where these people do not even exist, right? So you derive these things, and then you bring those kind of automations where you regularly remind people, not bug too much, but I'll say regularly keep reminding people about the relevant thing that you are bringing towards, right? Plus, what other stuff I feel like, and the data. So the one thing that I told you, right, like 1,000 people analogy, right? 1,000 people register for event. Are you really checking how the data matrix looks like? Are you speaking, creating those kind of automation? These many people registered, RSVP and whatnot, right? So these kind of automations are really important, especially in the community, if you are bringing community program to life, because that saves you a lot of manual work, right? Otherwise you will always keep reaching out to people over LinkedIn. I always feel like stuck in that loophole, right? So that's the kind of a good way. But always remember this: community program is a human program. You cannot pull off agents. You cannot expect, if I am communicating right with you here over this podcast, if maybe one of my replica agent, right, would have come and given this podcast, it might have given the similar thoughts which I am giving, but the taste might be a little bit off, right? So I'll say the taste is really important, especially in a space like community, right? Because it's more about experiences, it's more about people. It's not about the product, it's more about people, how I feel about the product, or how I feel about the respective community, or that product, right? It's more about that rather than the product that already have so much information. And very much important thing for any fresher out there who are just starting out their community journey: present something or speak about something which is not already on internet, right? So imagine if you are working on a SaaS environment or working for a SaaS company, and your metric is to drive more engagement through blogs or through social media channels. If you are just posting about regular things which are already there present on the internet, and I can just look it over, it doesn't make any sense. It has zero relevance. Look after how you can bring your own personal flavor to it. And if you have to do it as a human being, as an individual, if you would have been on the other side, how you would have done it. Just look after that way of maybe sharing resources with the community, rather than just making it again sharing the same redundant stuff again.
Truly, I believe because on platforms like LinkedIn, I often came across the content which is obviously generated by ChatGPT. They are just copy pasting what they thought and they create the post. Obviously, I don't know, but it loses, the personal taste that you said about your replica.
Right.
So it's sharing about the personal instances and experiences really matters. And I want to know what platform we should use as a communication platform for the community, and how you focused on data. So what we can do with the data and how we can drive what the data represent, whether if we are conducting an event, data like what their name, their city, their state, and what else we can take. And after the event gets over, what we can do with the data that can help with us, with our community.
There cannot be a single answer for it, right? Because it varies with respective product that trying to pull off in the industry. SaaS product cannot be, a B2B product cannot, a matrix for which is for B2B product cannot be similar for a B2C product, right? So same thing with the one thing that you said, mode of communication. It cannot be the same for someone if you're building a working professional community versus if you're building a student community, right? It cannot be the same, right? So you have to think of what's there and what are you actually looking after, right? to what's your audience, who you trying to impress in a good way. Maybe I'll say this is the right word to use. So just look after who you are trying to impress, and make sure your voice reaches to everyone, maybe in a good way, not that it has to be very redundant and overwhelming. Just look after how you can make it simple for people to grasp. So you have to make it so simple for people to understand that they just get in the just one go, right? It doesn't have to be very complicated, very sketchy or something like that, right? Like likewise, I'll tell you very good example of in LinkedIn these days, those gifs, system architecture or system design of gifs works really well, right? So it's kind of interactive. Does it maybe if you put up a same diagram without any animation, it not might work as good as gif works, maybe animated form of the same diagram works, right? So you have to figure out these respective identities with whom, where, when you are targeting, right? So as I said about campus ambassador program, when you are doing it, what is the timing? Are you in 2024? Are you in 20 still in, maybe, or are you in 2025, or are you still running or want to run your community program like 2021? So you have to derive a lot of factors, and especially, and then the last part of your question which you said about the data, I will say keep your data handy. A lot of organizations do not spend, maybe enough money on analytics. A lot of analytics, not analytics, but maybe creating a good, or maybe utilizing a good CRM dashboards, or maybe something like which can actually speaks about give you much more information about where this data is coming from, how you can effectively use the data, right? And again, the numbers will always, the matrices will always be defined by the sales team. You cannot sales team and product team, and again as a community manager you will also derive it, but that's a learning process. It always changes over time, and you have to, it is always dependent respective to the respective product that you wanted to market, right? It cannot be the same for every, maybe, like there is no secret sauce, to be very honest. Yeah.
Wonderful. And we have the last two questions that we would like to cover. What's the hardest challenge you faced while scaling the community, and how did you overcome it?
I don't feel like challenge anything. Maybe there is nothing like a challenge, right? Only challenge that I often feel like, a lot of times my family has been saying, okay, why all this charity? But for them it's a charity, yeah. But I feel like, okay, if you can answer that question, if you can convince them enough, you are good to go, right? But that's the only thing that I'll say. Rest is all good, yeah. Yeah, and I don't feel like scaling community is a challenge if you are doing in the, maybe running in the community with a really honest way, and maybe honest plus maybe in a relevant way, which helps you scale your product life cycle, or maybe helps you in your sales funnel, you're always good to go, I'll say. Yeah.
I can totally relate with you because my parents also say the same thing to me, especially my father, that what are you getting, organizing and attending these events? And I don't know how I convince him, but
It's
only.
you just, you do not need to, I'll say, right? Because over time, once they started, once you started reaching there, I mean, just 6 months, 7 months of time, you feel like, okay, this is the value that I've been getting from the community after getting invited from different places, after maybe that one blog that like that blasts like anything, right? So maybe that one viral video of yours, right? So there are so many things, right? So they'll convince on their own, right? So that's something that I will say.
And with this, we have the last question of our amazing podcast. Finally, what's next for you in your journey, Lakshit?
I these days I'm more into freelancing, and I feel like I'll maybe do it for a quite good amount of time. I am working on a couple of initiatives. There is BIB Classroom, so maybe I'll take this stage to announce that. So with me, with my couple of friends, again in the community spaces, and there are two brilliant folk minds behind this, Sarthak Jain and Debasam Puhan. We are building BIB Classroom. This is like Build in Bharat Classroom that we are pulling off. It's a free agentic course that we are doing, and there is no charge associated to it. Plus we are not keeping it like no code, right? It's a proper hands-on coding experience for you. Plus we are not partnering with any respective organization who are just doing there for the promotion. So you'll feel like the what is the relevance of why do we even use RAG, right? Is there a relevant of using RAG or not? So there are there are really good aspects which we will be touching upon, so maybe stay tuned over our socials. And yeah, that's something for me that I'm really excited about to announce from this stage. And the rest, maybe from professional aspect, I don't really know. I have, maybe I'll join some organization if I feel like joining, but right now I'm feeling like I'll take this break for me to explore a lot of other stuff, so maybe I just enjoying my break. Yep.
Wonderful, and that's really nice initiative. Uh, Kindly do share me about it. I would love to share in my community
Sure.
because I also run a community to support and mentor women in tech that is around 100 plus girls all across India. They would really get help out of it. And with
Perfect.
this, we would love to conclude this amazing podcast. I hope you all get to learn about communities and from Lakshit experiences, all the important things that you should be seeing as an individual, as a community manager, as an organization owner, co-founder, like anyone. This podcast is for anyone. And thank you so much, Lakshit, for your valuable time, support, and all the advices that you've shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, Manik. You have been a wonderful host. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Have a good, great rest of your evening. Bye bye.